a nurse, saved a young man's life after losing her job, not knowing he was a millionaire, and fell in. Imagine this: a cold, rainy night in the heart of the city. The streets are empty, except for the sound of rain pelting the pavement. A young woman, drenched and desperate, kneels beside a stranger, lying motionless on the ground. His life is slipping away, and she has no medical supplies, no team to rely on, just her bare hands and an unshakable determination to save him. But what she doesn't know in that moment will change both their lives forever. This isn't just a story about survival. It's about how one act of kindness can ripple through time, connecting two souls in ways neither could have imagined. The woman's name is Isabella, a Filipina nurse who had recently lost her job at a hospital due to budget cuts. For 5 years, she poured her heart into caring for others. But now, stripped of her title and struggling to make ends meet, she feels invisible. Working under the table at a small diner, she sends money home to support her family in the Philippines, while silently battling the weight of uncertainty about her future. That night, as fate would have it, Isabella found herself face to face with a man bleeding out on the street, a man whose life she saved without hesitation, not knowing he was a millionaire CEO named John Blake. What unfolds from there is a tale of resilience, love, and second chances that reminds us all of the power of compassion. As Isabella pressed her coat against the wound on John's chest, desperation clawed at her throat. Her voice cracked as she called out for help, but the world seemed to turn its back. Cars sped by, pedestrians hurried past, and the only sound was the relentless drumming of rain. Yet even in those terrifying moments, something inside her refused to give up. She thought of her mother back home, her younger brother counting on her, and the dream she once had of making a difference in the world. In saving this stranger, Isabella wasn't just fighting for his life. She was reclaiming a piece of herself. Little did she know, this selfless act would set off a chain of events that would lead her back to purpose, passion, and ultimately love. John, on the other hand, wasn't supposed to be there that night. He was a man adrift, consumed by the pressures of running a global tech empire, but feeling utterly empty inside. Walking alone through the rain, without a driver or security detail, he was a shadow of the powerful figure people saw in boardrooms. When he collapsed on that deserted street, his body broken and his spirit fading, he had no idea that the person kneeling beside him would become the light guiding him back to himself. As Isabella worked tirelessly to keep him alive, their fates intertwined in a way neither could foresee. And when John woke up in the hospital days later, his first thought wasn't about the business deals he'd missed. It was about finding the woman who had saved him. But here's where things get complicated. After that fateful night, Isabella returned to her quiet, uncertain life. She didn't know if the man survived, and she certainly didn't expect to see him again. Each day became a blur of long hours at the diner, sleepless nights worrying about her visa status, and the gnawing fear of being deported. Meanwhile, John began piecing together fragments of his memory, haunted by the image of a young woman kneeling in the rain, her eyes filled with fierce determination. Determined to find her, he scoured hospitals, retraced his steps, and even visited places he thought might hold clues. But every lead ended in frustration. Just as hope seemed to slip away, destiny stepped in, and their paths crossed again in the most unexpected place. Their reunion wasn't glamorous or planned. It happened in the middle of a bustling diner, amidst clinking plates and murmured conversations. At first glance, Isabella almost didn't recognize him. Gone was the bloodied, unconscious man from the street. In his place stood someone tall, composed, and impeccably dressed. But then their eyes met, and everything else faded away. For John, seeing Isabella again felt like coming home. For Isabella, it was a mix of shock, relief, and curiosity. As they sat down to talk over coffee, the air between them crackled with unspoken questions and possibilities. Who was this man really? Why had their paths crossed not once, but twice? And more importantly, what did this mean for her fragile, uncertain future? What makes this story so compelling isn't just the romance that blossoms between Isabella and John. It's the deeper themes of identity, purpose, and the transformative power of kindness. Isabella, despite losing everything, never stopped, believing in the value of helping others. John, though surrounded by wealth and success, realized too late that true fulfillment comes from connection and contribution. Together, they embark on a journey that challenges societal norms, bridges cultural divides, and redefines what it means to truly see someone for who they are. Their relationship evolves not because of convenience or obligation, but because of mutual respect, admiration, and shared values. As their bond deepens, John introduces Isabella to a project close to his heart, a foundation aimed at bringing healthcare to underserved communities. It's not charity, it's an opportunity for Isabella to reclaim her calling and use her skills to uplift others. Watching her step into this role, John sees beyond her humble beginnings and recognizes the strength, intelligence, and compassion that define her. For Isabella, working alongside John reignites a fire within her, a reminder that she is more than the sum of her struggles. Together, they begin building something meaningful, something that honors both their pasts and their shared vision for the future. Yet, just as their lives start falling into place, new challenges arise. John's company faces a crisis that threatens everything they've built together, forcing him to return to New York abruptly. Isabella, torn between staying with her family and supporting John, must make a choice that tests the strength of their relationship. Will distance pull them apart, or will their love endure the trials ahead? And as Isabella dedicates herself to establishing a clinic in her hometown, she grapples with questions of belonging and legacy. Can she bridge the gap between her roots and the life she's building with John? These unanswered tensions hang in the air, leaving viewers eager to learn what happens next. This story isn't just about Isabella and John. It's about all of us. It's about the moments when life feels overwhelming and hopeless, yet we choose to extend a hand anyway. It's about the people who enter our lives unexpectedly and remind us of our worth. And it's about the courage to chase dreams, even when the odds seem stacked against us. So, as we leave Isabella standing on the porch of the newly opened health center, watching lanterns float into the sky, we're left wondering, how will their love story unfold? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where sacrifices are made, promises are tested, and hearts are laid bare. Because sometimes, the most beautiful journeys are the ones we least expect. The days following their reunion at the diner were a whirlwind of emotions for Isabella. John's presence in her life felt surreal, like a dream she couldn't quite trust. She had saved his life on that rainy night, but now he was offering her something far greater, a chance to reclaim her purpose. Still, doubt lingered in her mind. Was this real? Could someone like him truly understand what it meant to live as someone like her? Every time she looked at him, she saw not just the man whose chest she'd pressed against with trembling hands, but also the weight of everything they represented. Wealth and struggle, visibility and invisibility, privilege and sacrifice. John, too, was navigating uncharted territory. He had spent years building an empire, Yet none of it had filled the void inside him until Isabella came into his life. Her act of kindness wasn't just about saving a life. It was about reminding him of humanity's core values. For the first time, he saw the cracks in his own world, the people who fell through the gaps because systems failed them or profits took priority. As much as he admired Isabella, he knew their differences weren't just superficial. There was a chasm between their worlds, one built on access and opportunity, the other on resilience and survival. But instead of scaring him away, it only deepened his resolve to bridge that gap, starting with her. Their partnership began tentatively. At first, Isabella hesitated to accept John's offer to join the foundation. It wasn't charity she feared. It was dependency. She didn't want to feel indebted to anyone, especially not someone whose life seemed so vastly different from hers. Yet, when she visited the foundation's headquarters for the first time, something shifted within her. The energy in the room was electric, filled with passionate individuals working tirelessly to bring healthcare to those who needed it most. When she stepped into the mobile clinic van for her first field visit, she felt alive again. Here, among eyes, patients who reminded her of her family back home, she found clarity. This was why she became a nurse, not for titles or paychecks, but to make a difference where it mattered most. As weeks turned into months, Isabella's role expanded beyond what either of them had anticipated. She wasn't just coordinating efforts, she was shaping the very foundation of the project. Her insights into community needs, born from years of personal experience, transformed their strategies. Mobile clinics multiplied, partnerships with local schools flourished, and patient outcomes improved dramatically. News outlets began to take notice, calling her the nurse who turned her second chance into a lifeline for thousands. Despite the accolades, Isabella remained grounded. To her, success wasn't measured in headlines, but in the smiles of mothers who could finally afford medicine for their children, or the relief in a veteran's eyes after receiving treatment for untreated diabetes. But even as triumphs mounted, tensions simmered beneath the surface. John's company faced mounting pressures. A data breach threatened to unravel years of work, exposing sensitive information and shaking investor confidence. Legal battles loomed, and the board demanded his immediate return to New York. For Isabella, the timing couldn't have been worse. They had just broken ground on a new health center in her hometown, a dream she had nurtured since childhood. Leaving now would mean abandoning not only her family, but also the villagers who depended on her. The thought of choosing between John and her roots tore at her heart. One evening, as they sat together under the stars in Manila, the weight of their dilemma hung heavy in the air. "I'll go with you," Isabella said softly, though her voice betrayed the turmoil inside her. John shook his head, his gaze steady yet tender. "You don't have to," he replied. "Your place is here, for now. Your mother needs you. These people need you. And I need to fix this mess." His words stung, not because they were harsh, but because they were true. Yet the idea of being apart, even temporarily, felt unbearable. Their goodbye at the airport was bittersweet. Isabella stood by the gate, clutching a small woven bracelet John had bought from a local artisan. "Remember," he whispered before boarding, "this is just one chapter." She nodded, forcing a smile despite the tears streaming down her face. As the plane disappeared into the horizon, she whispered to herself, "I'll see you soon." Those words became her mantra, a lifeline tethering her to hope during lonely nights. Back in Manila, Isabella threw herself into the project with renewed determination. Each brick laid, each patient treated, felt like a step closer to reuniting with John. Meanwhile, in New York, John fought battles on multiple fronts. Sleepless nights blurred into endless meetings as he worked to salvage his company's reputation. Yet no matter how overwhelming the challenges, his thoughts often drifted back to Isabella. Her strength inspired him, her humility humbled him, and her love gave him the courage to keep going. Months passed, and the health center neared completion. Villagers gathered daily, eager to contribute whatever they could. Children painted murals on the walls. Elders shared stories of traditional remedies, and young volunteers learned basic medical skills. It wasn't just a building, it was a testament to collective effort, proof that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark monumental change. On the day of its inauguration, the entire village buzzed with excitement. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze. Music echoed through the streets, and laughter filled the air. Isabella stood near the entrance, her heart swelling with pride. This was more than a milestone. It was redemption. Yet, amidst the celebration, a figure emerged from the crowd, tall, familiar, carrying himself with quiet confidence. John walked toward her. Time seemed to stop as their eyes met. In that moment, all doubts vanished. He carried something in his hand, a small velvet box. Kneeling before her, surrounded by cheers and tears, he asked the question that would seal their fates forever. And, as Isabella whispered her answer, the sun dipped below the hills, casting golden light over the inscription on the clinic's wall. Love doesn't need to find a perfect place. It begins from the most sincere place, from a giving heart. As the lanterns floated into the night sky, their soft glow illuminating the faces of villagers and visitors alike, Isabella felt a wave of emotions she couldn't quite put into words. Joy, relief, love, all of it mingled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The clinic stood behind them, not just as a building, but as a testament to what could be achieved when people came together for something greater than themselves. Yet, amidst the celebration, Isabella's mind wandered back to the challenges they had faced, the sacrifices made, the miles between her and John, and the countless moments where doubt had almost won. John seemed to sense her quiet reflection. He slipped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "We did this," he whispered, his voice steady, yet filled with awe. "You did this." Isabella shook her head slightly, leaning into him. "No," she replied softly. "We both did. Without you believing in me, I wouldn't have had the courage to believe in myself again." Their conversation was interrupted by Marco, who ran up to them, breathlessly, holding a small wooden box wrapped in twine. "Ma says this is for you," he said, grinning from ear to ear. Inside the box was a folded piece of paper and a delicate silver bracelet engraved with tiny flowers. Isabella unfolded the note, recognizing her mother's handwriting immediately. "To my daughter, who has always healed others, may you remember to heal yourself too." Tears welled in her eyes as she clasped the bracelet around her wrist, feeling its weight, a reminder of home, resilience, and unconditional love. The evening stretched on, filled with laughter, music, and stories shared under the stars. But as the crowd began to thin and the festivities wound down, Isabella found herself standing once more at the entrance of the clinic. She traced her fingers over the inscription etched into the stone wall. "Love doesn't need to find a perfect place. It begins from the most sincere place, from a giving heart." It was more than a quote. It was a philosophy that had guided her through every trial and triumph. And now, looking at the man beside her, she realized how perfectly those words described their journey. John followed her gaze, reading the inscription silently. After a moment, he turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "Do you think we'll ever stop fighting for things?" he asked, half joking, but with a hint of seriousness. Isabella smiled faintly, shaking her head. "I hope not," she said. "Fighting for what matters. That's what keeps us alive, isn't it?" In the weeks that followed, life settled into a rhythm neither of them had anticipated, but both embraced wholeheartedly. John divided his time between New York and Manila, ensuring the foundation continued to grow, while overseeing critical repairs to his company's reputation. Isabella threw herself into running the clinic, training local nurses, and expanding outreach programs to nearby villages. Together, they became a bridge between two worlds, connecting resources with needs, privilege with humility, and dreams with action. One afternoon, as Isabella sat in the clinic's small office, reviewing patient files, there was a knock at the door. It was John, carrying a laptop and wearing a look of quiet excitement. "I have something to show you," he said, setting the device on the desk. On the screen was an article from a prominent international health journal. The headline read, "From Rainy Streets to Rural Clinics, How One Nurse Inspired Global Change." Below it was a photo of Isabella and John, cutting the ribbon at the clinic's inauguration, surrounded by cheering villagers. Isabella stared at the image, her throat tightening. "They wrote about us," she murmured, still processing the magnitude of what they had accomplished. John nodded, watching her closely. "Not just us," he corrected gently. "About everyone who believed in this vision, including you." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Isabella closed the laptop, turning to face him fully. "Do you think we'll ever feel like we've done enough?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. John reached for her hand, squeezing it firmly. "Probably not," he admitted. "But maybe that's the point. Maybe enough isn't the goal. Maybe it's about always striving to do better, to reach farther, to care deeper." As months turned into years, the clinic became a beacon of hope, not just for Isabella's hometown, but for surrounding regions as well. Medical students from universities across the country volunteered during their breaks, learning firsthand the importance of grassroots healthcare. Donations poured in from unexpected sources. Former patients, inspired strangers, even competitors of Blake Tech who admired the initiative. The ripple effect of Isabella's act of kindness on that rainy night had grown beyond anything she or John could have imagined. And yet, despite all the progress, Isabella never lost sight of why she started. Every morning she woke early, walking through the quiet streets of her village before heading to the clinic. She greeted neighbors, checked on elderly residents, and listened to children recount their dreams. These small interactions reminded her that healing wasn't just about treating illnesses. It was about nurturing connections, fostering trust, and creating spaces where people felt seen and valued. On one such morning, as she stood outside the clinic, watching the sunrise paint the horizon in hues of orange and pink, John joined her. He carried 2 cups of coffee, handing her one without a word. They sipped in companionable silence, the air thick with the promise of another day. Finally, John broke the quiet. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't collapsed that night, if our paths hadn't crossed?" Isabella considered the question, her gaze fixed on the distant hills. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but then I think, maybe it wasn't random. Maybe we were meant to find each other, not because of where we came from or what we had, but because of who we are." She glanced at him, her smile warm and unwavering. Kindness has a way of finding its way to the right people. John chuckled softly, bumping his shoulder against hers. "Well, I'm glad it found you. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light over the village, Isabella leaned her head on John's shoulder. In that moment, surrounded by the community they had built and the love they had nurtured, she knew one thing for certain. Life wasn't about avoiding storms. It was about learning to dance in the rain, and together, they had created a rhythm that would carry them forward, no matter what lay ahead. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey of love, sacrifice, and second chances. Isabella's story reminds us that even in our lowest moments, kindness has the power to heal, to build, and to bring souls together across oceans and against all odds. If this story moved your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Soul Stirring, stories where true tales like this come to life and touch the deepest parts of who we are. We believe that every act of compassion creates a ripple, and every story shared brings us one step closer to understanding each other. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in the power of a giving heart.